What am I saying again?
This is MPW,
MPW.
the podcast.
With your host, Xylo Aria.
Cool.
A podcast about music production
For the everyday musician.
where we learn from experienced studio engineers and each other.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the MPW podcast. I'm your host, Xylo Aria, and today I'm really excited to welcome our guest, Anna Lavery. So Anna is a music producer, a mixer, and an engineer, and she has worked with artists including Lady Gaga, Florence and the Machine, and Bloc Party, just to name a few. So lovely to have you today, Anna.
Hey, great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. It's a pleasure. And, it's really nice to be able to record this in the same time zone as someone, because lately it's always been opposite to the guests that I'm working with. So, yeah, it's nice that we're both nice and early in our days, and it's a decently nice day outside.
Yeah, it's great. I'm so happy to be here, and what a better way to, have a great morning chatting about music.
Yeah, for sure. So have you been up to much else this morning so far?
I've just been doing a bit of professional development, which is something I've been doing a lot during this lockdown.
That's good. It's good. I mean, what a better time to just learn some new stuff. And it's good to kind of keep learning, as we were saying. So,
Yeah, upskilling always.
yeah. No, that's good. That's good. So I guess you started your journey in Western Australia. So you were studying there, and then you moved to the UK quite young, and then you moved back to Australia as well. So, and then, you've had incredible experiences across a number of different studios. So tell me a bit about that and how that came about in a kind of summarized way.
In a very brief way, because it's a very long story. When I was 17, I started university. I went to university in Western Australia and studied sound. So the course was, it was called sound. It wasn't called sound engineering or production. And it was kind of before the colleges that are like, come and learn how to be a music producer. It was like, this college was like, come learn about sound, learn about audio, learn about ears, learn about microphones and tape machines and all that kind of stuff. And I always found that really interesting because I was like a super technical nerd kid, and I spent a lot of my time making my own radio shows on my little kind of hi-fi
really?
stereo.
I love that.
So to go there and do that was pretty awesome. It was pretty exciting. So I did that, and then when I was 19, I moved to London. As soon as I could get on a plane, I went to London with $500, which I thought was heaps of money at the time. And I literally walked out of Victoria Station after getting off the plane. Someone handed me a flyer for a hostel in Stockwell, and I went and stayed there for 2 weeks until I could find a job. And my first job in London.
Wow. Did you not book anything?
No, I didn't book anything. And my first job in London was at a Virgin Megastore. So it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool because I landed and I met heaps of people who loved music. And it's really funny. I've been watching the new High Fidelity, and it just reminds me of that time of working in record stores. It was so fun. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. And then you moved to Australia after a while there, I guess.
So I was in London for like 5 or 6 years, and I was just knocking on doors and asking for some work or some help. And it wasn't that long before I got work experience at Moloko Studios. And then at the end of my 2 weeks there, they kept me on as an assistant engineer. So I mostly worked with like Ben Hillier and Paul Epworth and those guys who looked after the Pool studio. And it was wonderful. I worked there for ages, worked on loads of cool records, learned so much stuff. And then, my partner was like, oh, I really want, I need some sun, basically. So we moved back to Australia, and I sort of started from the bottom again as an assistant engineer. And I was working at Sing Sing Studios, and then I just basically, as soon as I sort of decided I didn't really want to assist anymore, my phone just started ringing with jobs to engineer and produce, and it was amazing. And usually those jobs came from people who I had worked with as an assistant, and then the bands that they were in, the big bands that they were in, where they'd had budget to go into big studios, had broken up and they'd started new bands. So they didn't have as much money, but they knew that I knew how to work all the machines. And so they would call me and ask me if I would do it. So yeah,
Wow.
good times.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's really awesome. And yeah, I guess when these opportunities come, you have to take them and be ready for it. And with all your training beforehand, it probably set you up perfectly to take these on.
Yeah, I mean, there is that saying of like, I can't exactly remember what it is, but it's something about like there's no such thing as luck. It's like you just have to be ready so that when opportunities do come, you are just so ready to grab them and take them and run with them.
For sure, for sure. And I think that is true. And also, I think when people just wait for opportunities to come along, it's just not the right attitude. You do definitely create the opportunities as well. And if you're not in the right mind frame, you probably wouldn't even see them if they were in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, I have always created my own job. There has like I'm not employed. I've not been employed since I was, 17 and I worked in a supermarket or actually a video store. But yeah, and then I kind of had a side job in a record store in London and stuff like that. But in terms of being an audio engineer or a music producer, I've never been employed by someone.
And how much, I guess, is part of your job of going to find work? Because as a freelancer, you do have to keep, on the lookout for what else is out there and keep generating your income.
Well, it's funny because you do it like you kind of hustle a lot at the start. Like, to be honest, it was mostly just going to shows and just falling in love with bands and wanting to record them. And then eventually, I guess you kind of become friends, and then you just offer to record them in the rehearsal room and it sounds pretty good. And so then when their band does really well, they get you back and they've got budget and you go to a studio. And then eventually like word of mouth is where I get all my gigs, really. And I still go to a lot of shows, and I've been doing this for like ages and I'm still going to shows because I love live music. I think you just can't fake it. You just have to be doing it because you just really love it.
Okay, so one thing we do in these episodes is to define the topic. So I've called it a killer mindset, and I guess it's just a positive mindset. And what would you kind of define that as in a music setting?
Yeah, so look, I really wanted to talk about this topic because I feel like I have since I was 15 years old and I decided that I wanted to be a sound engineer, actually, is what I decided I wanted to be. I have just been so focused and I've had such a focused dream, and every decision I've made since then has been about achieving that. So being able to get there has been like serious sacrifices and setbacks and financial stress and all that kind of stuff, but I just had this mindset where it was going to happen and I was going to get there. And yeah, it's really funny because, now I was sort of at a time where I'm like, well, I got there, I did it, but the mount, like it's kind of just like you get to a ridge on the mountain. And then every time you think you've got there, you look and you go, fuck, there's another mountain right behind it. And it never kind of goes away. And I think you just have to focus on that. And the drive is something that has never gone away for me either.
And that's so important in an industry like music, and specifically in production and engineering and in the tech side of things, is that it's never really going to get easy, isn't it? Is it? Like it might get easier, but you're always going to have to push yourself and keep moving forward. And that would be a real struggle if you're not kind of able to keep that motivation and drive up.
For sure. I think, you have, the thing is, it's such a cliche to say, but you have to love it. You just have to love it, because when you've been working for like 17 hours and you're kind of feeling pretty tired and exhausted and shitty about stuff, you just have to love music, because otherwise you wouldn't do it. You would just go and do something else.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And yeah, that love for it is so important. And I guess why we choose a career in something like this, which is so much harder, I guess, than in you could get just a paid job and get your salary, but not have the love maybe for this thing that you do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So you've been in this industry for a while now. What would you say have been kind of the biggest mentally challenging aspects of your job, and how has that impacted you?
Look, I really enjoy my job. I don't really find a lot to complain about at all. I love the lifestyle. I love the friendships that I've made and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I guess the hardest part is it's something you just get used to, but not having a regular kind of schedule at all. so like I find it really funny because in this coronavirus lockdown that everyone's in at the moment, at the start everyone was like, whoa, what day is it even? Like, who knows? Because they place their whole schedule on what days they're working. And the funny thing about it is I just work whenever I work, and it's not, it could be the middle of the night, it could be the middle of the day, it could be a Sunday morning, it could be, a Tuesday afternoon. It's so random. So not having a regular schedule, not having a regular income schedule sort of thing, so you can't really plan for stuff is kind of weird. And I do remember that a couple of things that I've like missed out on, big things that I wanted to do in my life because of my job, and I don't regret that at all. But there are sacrifices. Like, for example, we had planned a big road trip across America, and I was in New York with my partner and our friends. And I got a phone call when I was there from my job back in London saying, hey, we just got a last minute booking for doing the editor's record. Is that something you want to do? And I was like, yes, that's something I want to do. It's probably the biggest record I would have worked on to date. And
Yeah.
they were like, cool, it starts on Monday. And I was like, God damn it. So I booked a ticket and I flew back to London, and my friends and my partner drove across America without me.
Wow.
But then I got to do the editor's record, and from that I got to work with like new producers and new engineers, and that took me further in my career. So there are things that you sacrifice, but I love my job. It means that I'm doing it 15 years later,
Yeah, for sure, for sure. That is a big sacrifice. The road trip would have been awesome. But yeah, and that's the thing, is you got to work on this incredible record, which is really cool.
It is really cool. And I mean, I've still never driven across America.
One day.
Yeah.
So we were talking about mindset, and you were mentioning to me earlier that you moved to the UK when you were quite young, and that you kind of knew that things were going to work out. And I think that's a mindset that a lot of people strive for and kind of work towards, but it seems to be a kind of part of who you are, which is really lovely. And I'm wanting to talk about, I guess, what do you feel is the importance of that kind of mindset compared to technical skill?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's I do feel like it's an inherent part of my personality just to have that drive and also that loyalty and that commitment. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it no matter what. And there is that thing, like I've had a lot of assistants and a lot of interns over the years, and I'll know within an hour if I think it's going to work out for them. And it's not really based on, it's certainly not based on like how many shortcuts they know on Pro Tools. It's really not about that. It's just about having that, just the right personality, the ability to admit when you don't know how to do something and ask, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm always, like, even to now, I'm always learning. And if I feel like I don't really know how to do something, especially with someone else's expensive gear, I'm certainly not going to pretend. Like, I'll just be like, oh, I can't, I haven't used this for a really long time. Could you just run through it with me? And they'll be like, thank God you said that because I really don't want you to break my thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So there is a bit of a trap for young players where they come straight out of college and they call themselves a producer, and they almost sort of are very defensive about what they don't know or what they do know. I would say, like, just it's not, especially when you're young, it's really not bad to ask questions and say that you don't know how to do something.
Yeah, yeah, that's good and so true. I mean, some of the guests that I've spoken to, they're incredible, incredible producers and they learnt pretty much everything on the job. And I guess you couldn't get to somewhere doing this a particular level without having the kind of humility to ask questions and be able to say that I don't know this,
Yeah.
because growth would just be very stunted otherwise.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like you're always learning, always, and also that love of collaboration as well. Like I very distinctly remember realizing that because I was an assistant for so long. I assisted for over 10 years.
Wow.
So that's working with other producers and engineers every day. And then all of a sudden it got to a stage in my career where I was like, wow, I'm the producer, I'm the boss, like all
Yeah.
this stuff. And then I was like, shit, I don't get to work with people anymore. I don't get to hang out with Mark Rankin and Paul Epworth after we've had a day recording Florence and the Machine and talk about how amazing that was.
Yeah.
It's like I'm on my own in the studio because, we don't have the budget for engineers and assistants all the time. So yeah, you're kind of there on your own. And I really miss that collaboration and that constant learning other people's tricks or trying stuff together. And yeah, so I would cherish those moments when you get to spend it with other producers and engineers.
Oh, that's so nice. That's so nice. And yeah, and I think good advice for other people who are working with others and learning to really make the most of it and take as much as you can. So that's really good. One thing I wanted to talk about was, you mentioned that the positive mindset is kind of part of who you are, which is awesome. And I guess the more experience you have, the more you can develop that as well. But would you say there's anything other than experience that you can kind of use to develop this more and make yourself mentally more strong?
Well, I mean, just like on a personal level, I think looking after your like sleep and eating patterns. God, I should really listen to my own advice. Very big tip: taking vitamin D is a big thing because if you're in the studio a lot, But I don't know. I just feel like I've always kind of known in my heart that everything was going to be good and I was going to get there. Like someone in this world gets to be a music producer, and why wouldn't that be me? Yeah. And I guess I just always had that. Yeah, I guess I've just always had that. And that is the thing that has enabled me to, to kind of keep going.
Yeah, cool, cool. And you mentioned having a schedule and patterns of sleeping, eating, and that kind of thing, which sounds pretty basic, but I guess everyone now, especially in the coronavirus time, like you mentioned, is kind of struggling to keep that. And that's just a normal part of a music producer's job where every day could be a work day. Is there any sort of boundaries that you make for yourself to be like, okay, this is work time. Now I'm not doing that and I'm going to completely switch off? Because it's something that I have struggled with in the past as well, where you feel like you could be working all of the time. And sometimes there's this guilt of not working, which can really have an impact on you mentally.
I still have that. I always have that. Always, whenever I have this thing where I have to be being productive all the time. And, when I was younger and I didn't have as many responsibilities, that was all funneled into audio and work. Now that I'm a little older and I have children, I still have the same personality. So I just channel that into like doing stuff with my kids.
Yeah, cool.
But it is the same personality trait that you take from being pretty obsessed over certain things and just transferring it to different like things.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But I mean, I just on that as well though, like, so for example, I hadn't actually sat down and started writing a song from scratch in a long time. And then just a few nights ago, I was like, because I do co-writes and stuff with people for work, but I thought, damn, I'm gonna give it a go just for pleasure and
Yeah.
to no brief and just like for myself. So I did it, and it was so fun, and it was so great, and now I'm kind of a little bit obsessed with it, and I feel like I just want to do it all the time.
Oh, nice.
Which is great, but obviously I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I think that love for the creation is something that's so inherently part of what makes music enjoyable. And sometimes you can kind of fall into the trap of or if you don't really have to do it as part of your job, just it's not something that you can make time for. So it's nice when you can and feel that rush of when you write something that you really like. I think is something that I've never really received from anything else.
Yeah, see, that's so funny because that's the artist in you. See, I'm not that person. I did get that rush the other night and it was really, really great.
Yeah.
But I get that rush from like mixing a song. Like just catching myself in the middle of a mix and being like, oh, it sounds so good. I'm so happy and so excited, and how great is this?
Yeah.
So I mostly get that, and I get it from like plugging in a really beautiful microphone and listening to someone sing it.
Oh.
because I'm a total nerd. But
I love it.
But that's what I do. That's what I do. That's my passion. So that makes me really, really happy.
Yeah. Cool. And I mean, we all in music, whatever you work as or wherever you are, I think comparison is such a thing that so many of us do. And it can really impact you, I think, in a lot of different ways of being like, oh, this person is here. Why am I not here as well? How do you have anything to kind of say about that? And has that been something that's impacted you?
Yeah, look, it has been something that impacted me in the first half of my career, I would say. I had a real issue with comparing myself to where others were. And look, it sounds terrible, but I sort of sometimes felt like I missed out on things that I should have not missed out on and that other people got. And even now, I feel like sometimes people get recognized for things before me in a way. I know that sounds really terrible, and that's actually quite a personal thing for me to say, but at the same time, someone said to me probably about 10 years ago, why are you comparing yourself to that person? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just keep doing what you're doing, and eventually that will be you. And you know what? It was. And I'm so glad that person said that to me, because that was one of my mentors, Stephen Tram, said that to me. He was just like, why does it matter?
Yeah.
Why are you comparing yourself to that person? And actually what he said to me was, you should be happy for them. And it kind of made me go, wow, what am I doing? They're my friend. I should totally be happy for them. And so, from that moment, my mindset completely changed.
Oh, that's so nice. And I guess my mum is quite a spiritual person, and she's always coming up with things like this, when I'm like, oh my God, why is this not working? Or why is this person doing this amazing thing and I'm not being recognized for this or whatever. She just kind of laughs at it, and she's like, you realize you're two completely different people on two completely different paths. What someone else is doing has nothing to do with you. And it's not like, I mean, the universe, if we get really, into it, she's like, it's not like there's only a spot for one person or two people, if you believe the world to be an abundant place where there are opportunities for anyone who really wants them and seeks them, then you will find it in your time, and just because someone else has doesn't mean that you can't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Go mum. Yeah, like I just think it's everyone has their own story. Embrace your own story.
Mhm.
And you know, it's really funny because like I sit there and sometimes think, oh, you know, I just haven't done enough. I haven't, you know, it's that classic like needing to be doing something all the time. Haven't done enough with my time. Oh my God, I'm this age, like I haven't done enough by this time. And then like, you know, someone reads out your bio and you go, oh yeah, I did do all that stuff.
Yeah.
I've done all that
For
stuff,
sure.
you know. Or in my case, I go, oh my God, I just, you know, I feel like I just didn't do enough last year and I should have been doing all this other stuff. And then my husband will be like, yeah, you had a baby in February and then like you had mixed 5 records by March. What the fuck? You know, what are you talking about? So just that little someone just giving you a little like check on your own criticism is helpful sometimes.
Oh, yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think seeing things from other people's perspective as well, like, because we're just most often our worst critic
For
and
sure.
and yeah, and I think one way, again, my mum's tip, is to kind of acknowledge these things is all the little wins that you have, like just take time to celebrate it, even if you're doing something little like just getting a dessert from somewhere or just something to mark that so that it's a bit like, cool, I've done this cool thing. Now let's move on. Right. Because we can really easily be like, oh, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? Without really taking the time
Yeah.
for the last thing to sink in and be like, wow, that was a really cool thing that I did.
Absolutely. If I ever finish like a really big job or a an award or something like that, I'll always try to mark it with something exactly like what you were just saying. And
Oh, nice.
very recently I was given like a little award and I got a little bit of cash and I just that and like I this is when the coronavirus happened was happening, like the start of it, and everyone was like, oh my God, no work, no money for 6 months,
Yeah.
what are we going to do? And I got this cash and it wasn't a lot of money, but like I got this cash and I was like, I'm buying everyone in my family a present
Oh, I love
because
that.
everyone yeah, but everyone in my family like helped me. Like my husband looks after my baby and you know, my daughter like sacrifices me not being around a lot. You know, like these things matter. And
Yeah.
so like I just bought everyone like a little present and gave it, and then obviously it took forever to arrive because you know, and then they arrived and I gave them to everyone and they were like, oh, thanks, you know, you didn't have to do that. It was like just made me feel really great doing that.
Yeah.
And it was like a nice little kind of reward for all the work that we put in all
Yeah,
the
for
time.
sure, for sure. Did you get yourself anything, Anna? Because that's important too.
I did.
Oh,
I
good.
did. I bought myself 3 fruit trees.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I'll get them in a couple of weeks because you know you put in an order and then they grow them for you and yeah, very exciting.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is awesome. Yeah, coming back to Australia and having a backyard and having access to our fruit trees just made me so happy after living in a small flat in London. So yeah, I totally understand. Good present.
I lived on a houseboat on the River Lee when I was in London, and I remember coming back to Australia, and I did not want to be here. I had my dream job in London, and I was like, "What am I doing? This is career suicide." And I came back, and like we went into the real estate agent. We were like, "Yeah, we need a flat," and they were like, "Oh, how about this like 2-bedroom like apartment in this really cool suburb for half of what you're paying for a freaking boat in London with no power?" And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So there are perks. Yeah.
And so we talked about comparison, and another thing that I think a lot of people deal with is perfectionism. So I know as an artist, I deal with it all the time, and a lot of other people have kind of talked about that as well. And I wonder if it's a similar thing as a kind of mixing engineer as well, and as a producer when you're working with someone else, that point where you don't really want to let it go because you're like, oh, I still have this to add, which I do believe is a form of fear, really, is you're scared to put it out in the world. So you tell yourself, oh, it's not ready yet. So have you experienced anything like that?
I experience perfectionism really badly, but not like that. I know exactly what you're saying, and I have to coach artists out of that every day of my life, basically. Like that's a very, very common thing for artists to have. I have perfectionism in that, like, I almost don't start things that I know aren't going to be perfect when I've finished with it. And like I know exactly what my limitations are. And so I sort of avoid doing things like, and it's actually something I've been trying to coach myself out of for the last couple of years because it's pretty, it can be pretty paralyzing. But yes, the perfectionism is a huge issue with artists and everyone I work with, and having to really talk people down from the edge is like, it's going to be okay if we don't, do that thing. It's not going to make a difference. And I think something we have to constantly remind ourselves, people who suffer from this, is like, people do not care half as much as everybody else think they do. They just don't care that much about you.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. It's so true. And it might sound mean, but I think it's pretty empowering that like people probably don't care. So you might as well do it. And yeah.
Exactly. Like for sure. I think the most important thing is that you have a history of doing stuff. Like you have a history of releases, and like a not perfect history of releases is way better than just never releasing anything. And if you let it stop you from doing things, you'll just never do it. You'll just end up doing something else for sure.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think that's really powerful. And so many people get stuck in that loop of, oh, yeah, I'm going to release one single in a year's time or whatever. And then, and then it's just really hard to kind of, it becomes more and more scary the more you kind of put it off.
Yeah, I'm pretty into giving myself deadlines as well. Like, by this time, like, so by lunchtime or by 5 o'clock or by Friday or by next month on this particular date, I will have done this thing. And I like write it in my calendar and hold myself responsible for that. I work really well to deadlines. So that's just a little thing that I do for myself.
For sure. I mean, accountability, I think, is so, so important. And if we keep ourselves accountable, that's great. But sometimes you need other people to keep you accountable. So in MPW, actually, we started monthly accountability. So start of the month, we'll ask everyone what goals do they want to achieve. And once they've told someone, whether it's us or our community, then it makes it a bit more real. And then we follow up as well at the end of the month as well. So
I gotta get in on that. I need that accountability.
Oh yeah,
sure.
Get in on that, Anna. So, yeah. So I think because I know that really helped me when I told people what I was going to achieve just to tell someone. Yeah. And so I think that's a really powerful thing. So that's good. So yeah, we've talked about comparison and perfectionism, which I think are two really, really big things that a lot of people deal with. So
you're touching all my buttons here, though. I'm feeling slightly anxious.
Oh no. Okay, the rest is not going to be as deep. But being in the industry for a while now, what is one thing that you kind of wished you knew at the start, or something you'd like to tell people that are going into it?
People are going to stop paying for music.
Yeah,
maybe.
It's a bit depressing.
Well, it is, but imagine if you knew that then, you could kind of restructure your whole plan around like people not buying. Yeah, I don't know, there's like the way that we're coming to it now is very different to how we were, and people like fighting against change in the industry. Whereas I think if we could just embrace it and work out a way that everyone's going to get paid, then that would have been cool. But then also just like on a personal level, I don't know, maybe like I think we've talked about a lot of the stuff that I sort of needed to get over, like the comparison thing and I know that I say I was a really confident person, and I was, and that's kind of how I had the guts to move to London with $500 and all that stuff. But at the same time, like I didn't call myself a producer for over 10 years of doing it because I just had this real feeling like people would be like, you're not a producer, like, but like we said before, people really don't care.
Yeah.
They're not watching you that
No.
closely.
Yeah.
Like I know we all like to feel like we're in the Truman Show, but it's just really not the case.
For sure, for sure. And this is a point that we've actually spoken about before on another episode about the ability to call yourself a producer. And I know you mentioned at the start, some people jump into that too early where they've just come out of whatever they're studying and call themselves a producer. But sometimes I feel like it's kind of a way to trick your own mind into thinking that you can do this thing, because I feel like, you know, for a long time I was producing my own stuff, but I didn't call myself a producer. And I think it kind of pushed me away from getting into production properly, because I could never get my head around, oh, maybe that is what I am and maybe that is what I'm doing. Is that if you can kind of get over that and be like, okay, I'm producing music, so I am a producer, but obviously don't, you know, keep that humility to be able to say that yes, I'm a producer, but it's not that I know everything and it's a lot for me to learn. But giving yourself that title then makes it a little bit more real, I think.
Yeah, see, it's so funny that you say that, because I very reluctantly called myself a producer at the start. Like other people called me a producer before I called myself one.
Yeah.
Which is so funny, but that's just the way that I am. I guess I'm pretty humble's not the right word. I guess it's like I'm just very very worried that people are going to call me out on things.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and so that's something that I definitely had to get over, because I was like producing entire records.
Yeah. Totally. And
like other people's records.
this is the thing, like we kind of don't really go into the kind of women men thing on this podcast, but it's something that definitely you'll find men doing more quickly than women, I think.
For sure.
And
for sure. I wasn't going to bring it up either, but yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
totally, because that's kind of what changed things for me when I kind of got to a stage where I was producing my stuff and still kind of looking for producers outside, because I was like, is this really what I do? Because I'm not really a producer. But then I'd get beats or whatever sent from me from men that called themselves producers, and I was like, this sucks. Like, I can do a better job than this. Why am I not calling myself a producer?
Well, there's that comparison thing again. Like you're exactly right. I think what happened with me was it took me so long to call myself a producer. And then these people who were assisting me were coming up and calling themselves producers. And I was like, wait a minute, hang on a minute, you know, get to the back of the line. Like,
yeah.
And also one of my mentors, again, Stephen Schramm, who I was talking about before, he said to me, I was engineering for him, and he said to me, I'm not booking you anymore. And I was like, hilarious. And he goes, no, seriously, I'm not booking you anymore. You need to go and find your own work. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, you know more than everyone. Like, you know more than everyone. All the people that come into this studio to make records, you know more than them. You do the records. Why are you not doing your own records? And so that was a real kick up the ass that I needed to be like, okay, cool, I'll do this. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I've had some incredible mentors.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah, who've really helped me.
Yeah, that's cool. So we have a few questions from our audience that so we have two. So one is from Sarah Rafferty. So Sarah asked, how do you balance motherhood with the expected workload and timelines as a producer?
It's a tough one, and I think it's evolving. Like, I think it changes. It's different when you have a tiny baby and to when you have like a 4-year-old or whatever, or a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old. But for me, I'm sort of at the very young child stage. So I have some pretty hilarious stories that I know make people like kind of shuffle in their seat and feel uncomfortable when I tell them. But I remember mixing the Peep Temple record and my husband walking to the studio twice a day with the baby for me to breastfeed while I was sitting at the SSL, you know, feeding.
Wow.
And that's that's how we did it. That's how we got around it.
Yeah.
And so we do 50-50. So he's essentially like the primary care, I guess, but then I'm the mum. So I have all of that physical stuff. And, it is really weird to talk about because there aren't many women who are producers and who are mums.
Yeah.
So I don't really feel like I have a huge like camaraderie around me in this area. But literally having a baby is about like breastfeeding and changing nappies and shit. So that's what you have to talk about because it's really difficult. But you just get through it day by day. That's my answer.
Yeah, no, sounds like good advice. And I think that's the thing of, this question kind of jumped out because I was like, there aren't too many people to ask this to. So
there's not, I mean, literally, I remember when me and my husband were like, should we have a baby? Like, we're kind of at that's something that we want to do now. And I researched and researched female producers who had babies who I could email and be like, is this possible? How do I do it?
Yeah.
And there were none. I couldn't find any. The only sound engineer that I found was Trina Shoemaker, and she had one son when she was like 40. I'm sure there are some, but I just couldn't find any documented ones that were doing the same thing as me.
yeah, but it is possible, so that's good.
Well, I'm 5 years in, and I'm still doing it full time, and now I've got 2 kids. So yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. Our second question was from Bonnie Marino. So she asked, how do you go about producing in collaboration with artists? Or I guess, where does the creativity come from? Like, do you put forward ideas, or do they kind of come with a really clear picture? And I think this is a good point to ask.
Okay, so as a co-production or a co-write? 'Cause they're pretty different
Production.
things.
I guess if a singer's coming to you with a song that they've written, how do you then go about producing that?
Oh, okay. Well, for starters, I do pre-production with people. So usually I'll get them to send me, well, always I'll get them to send me a demo so I can hear the song, and I sit down on my own and I have a listen to it, and I just kind of feel it out and see where they're trying to go with it. Then obviously I'll hear what they have to say about it, but I really like to listen to it on my own first just to get an idea of what I think they're trying to say. And then I'll do pre-production. So I'll go into a rehearsal room and we'll work out all the technical stuff. So the keys and the form and the tempo and the arrangement and all that kind of stuff. And that's when they'll tell me what they're trying to say. And we'll work out a vision for the song, like where we're trying to get to. And then I guess that's where I use my kind of like skills, my knowledge and my experience to say which studio we need to go to, what we need to do to get to that point.
So I guess it's kind of a collaborative process.
It totally is collaborative, and every producer is different. But I personally, I know of a lot of producers who are quite dismissive of the artist's end game, and they are like, this is the way that the song should be, and this is how we're going to produce it to be like that. But I, almost to a fault, I'm like, are we somewhere near where you want to be? And they're like, yes or no for these reasons, and then we'll kind of get there. I mean, like I say, every producer is different. That's just the way that I try to approach it.
Oh, I mean, it sounds good to me. And I think one of the reasons that I felt I had to produce myself was kind of dealing with that, where things are kind of taken away from you and turned into something that you didn't really expect. Sometimes that can be a good thing. Sometimes it can be like, oh, I've just kind of paid for this service and it's not where I want it to be. So
yeah, and that comes from a few things, and it's really hard because it's not like a lot of producers are out there going like, oh, I'm gonna screw this artist over and I'm gonna do what I want. They genuinely think that they know what's best for it, and that's what they're chasing. And so it's just sometimes a lack of communication, or artists not being able to speak up because they don't really know what they want because they haven't got that experience. But then there are certainly situations where some producers have some sort of other agenda to get the song to be more like what they want. yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. No, fair point.
And also, don't forget when you're working with kind of bigger label projects and stuff, there's a lot of people giving the producer their 2 cents
Yeah.
about what they need to be given at the end. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, that's a good point, I guess, when there's a lot of other parties involved in the creation.
Well, there's A&R, there's management, there's other people in the band, there's like all these people, and it is the producer's job, I guess, to try and figure out, you know, exactly what what you're trying to do with this song.
With all these opinions, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, I guess that takes us to the end of the episode. So thanks so much for chatting to me, Anna. And do you have much else planned for today?
I just had a mastering engineer call me and say, "Hey, I got the mixes, and like, there's not a lot of headroom. Can you do something?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, I got to go back to this album and see where I've. I don't know. I think it's all right, but we'll see."
Creating a bit more headroom. Yeah, cool. Sounds good. Cool.
Most mastering engineers are like, "Oh, cool, you did my job for me, thanks," but no, not this one.
Right. Okay, cool. All right. Well, enjoy that. And thank you again for your time. It's been really lovely chatting. And I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, thanks, mate. You too.
Thanks. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.